This is the Outlap F1 podcast featuring America's own Cody, Andy, and Deanna. Your one-stop shop for Formula One news, insights, race previews, and reviews. Join us on the Outlap. Come fly away with us as F1 begins its flyaway races to wrap up the 2025 season. The first one on the docket is the 2025 Azerbaijan. I'm going to learn how to spell it by the end of this week if it kills me. GP Race Preview Show. You found the Outlap F1 podcast, by the way, and you've got Andy and I'm along with Cody tonight. Cody, it's been a little bit since we've talked to each other, but how's it been going and how you hanging?
It's been good. I am looking forward to this race. Azerbaijan is really fun. I'm not looking forward to how early it is in the morning. And never mind spelling it. I like to play a little game with my wife about where's the next F1 race in the world. And I was giving her some neighboring countries, and she wasn't getting it. And when I said, "Oh yeah, it's in Azerbaijan," she's like, "What?" So yeah, we're learning our geography this week.
Yeah, the hashtags when you start to type in Azerbaijan on a certain social media platform, they're a little interesting. So we're gonna have to play it very careful this weekend. You can try it for yourself and find out what I'm talking about. But anyway, if you have found our show, welcome along. As always, we're glad you're here. You can find us as always on X, whatever they're calling that platform, whatever's left of it, Instagram, Discord, sometimes on Reddit, but here a lot on YouTube. At Outlap F1 Podcast is the handle for all of that. If you enjoy what you're hearing, or you like what you're seeing, or you like what you're hearing and enjoy what you're seeing, if you like both, do us a solid. Click the like and or subscribe button on YouTube. If you're listening to us on your favorite podcasting app, we're thrilled that you're doing that as well. A 5-star review will help this little endeavor come up a little bit better in F1 related search results if you're looking for content like this. You can always email the show outlap1@gmail.com. Get your thoughts on a direct line to us. Thank you so much to our Outlap F1 Nation who continues to support the show, including Dean Warwick, Yuri Dolchester, Paul Weaver, Quentin Warden, Kevin Kelly, who I think him and I are going to be doing the 3 a.m. FP3, the only two people in the Americas watching it and maybe direct messaging each other thing. We'll see. Regan Stanzik, Timothy Brown, and of course, Jonathan Scott. If you'd like to join that hallowed list of wonderful people, join our personal Mount Rushmore as it is. You can check out our Anchor page. It does ask for a little bit of a monetary donation. You do not have to do that if you don't want to. We're just glad you're listening. But if you'd like to do that, what would that do? It all goes into trying to make the show better, keeping our technology as current as we can. All right. So since the Tifosi had their track invasion in Italy a week and a half ago, we've had a little bit of news come our way. The biggest story kind of concerns sprint weekends. And even though this isn't a sprint weekend, that seems to be what the early part of the news cycle is going to be, because we talked about this a while ago when we kind of previewed what we thought the sprint weekends were going to be. Well, we ended up being completely right about that. So F1 this week confirmed the 2026 sprint calendar, and that will be China maintains its spot from last year. Miami gets moved from Austin to Miami, so a U.S. race there. Canada, which we're going to talk about Canada a little bit later too, because Canada did something very interesting with its start time, but that will be a sprint weekend. Silverstone, which has had sprint weekends before, now will have it again. Zandvoort, yes, it's leaving the calendar, but it's going to try to go out with a bang. And then the one that, this one just boggles my mind, Singapore. Yes, that's right. Singapore is somehow going to host an F1 sprint. I don't know how they're going to pull that one off, but yowza. The most physical race on the calendar is going to get even more physical. Let's do that. In cars that we don't know exactly what they're going to do in that type of heat, in that type of environment with power units that are still as yet unproven. This sounds like a recipe for wonderfulness, doesn't it, Cody? I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I kind of got the nerves going on this one. I mean, I'm fine with all the rest of them other than Singapore. But what's your thought?
Yeah, most of the rest of them are fine. Like Silverstone is great. I think that'll be a great one for a sprint. Canada will be great for a sprint. Um, Miami, I think that's just because I'm not a huge fan of the track, but like there's been some exciting stuff in there, and we got a decent sprint out of China, at least from Lewis Hamilton's perspective. So most of them on there I'm pretty good with. Zandvoort, I'm a little iffy on because it's gonna be kind of hard to pass there anyway. That's actually probably the main issue I have from a fan's perspective with Singapore is that race is pretty processional a lot of the time. So I've got a feeling you're going to get a pretty processional sprint, which means it's going to be boring as hell. But yeah, on top of that, for the drivers, it's going to be really rough because it's so hot and so humid that it's really hard just doing that Grand Prix by itself. And now you have to do a competitive sprint in there. On top of that, you got to do the extra qualifying, and it's going to be pretty brutal.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting. Just what I'm actually interested to see is actually the schedule for that weekend because normally FP3 is in the twilight hours of the day as the sun is setting, and you can kind of see the lights start to take effect. But that usually doesn't happen until like the end of the session. It starts out and it's still pretty bright out, and then it fades, and then you see the artificial lights take over. If that's going to be happening in a sprint, you could actually see the cars change how they work, versus sunlight versus, because the temperature is going to be going down. So interesting to a point, but I am more concerned actually more when I look at this about driver safety and all that other stuff. And do they push the sprint itself back a couple hours so that we know it's going to happen at night and therefore have to push the qualifying back even more? I don't know. We're going to see. The rest of them, like I said, are fine. I mean, to me, sprint weekends are fine. I like them for what they are. They should be around, I think, your bigger, much more marquee events. Silverstone makes a ton of sense. The last time they did a sprint weekend in Silverstone, I thought it was great. I'm surprised that they took one away from Brazil because that seemed to be like the hubbub or the place to have a meaningful sprint race. Whenever that format needs a rescue, you can point and look at Brazil and go, that's what it should be. And now that one's gone. I don't know that I see a track here that I go, this is what exactly the sprint is going for. But okay, fine.
Yeah, I think they're trying to just lure in more people to the places that are, well, I mean, I think you're going to probably lure as many Max fans as you can to Zandvoort, whether there's a sprint weekend or not. But a lot of the rest of them are in big population centers, Shanghai, Miami, Montreal, Singapore. Like you're going to probably fill out the stands there. Maybe that's what they're aiming for, is trying to fill out the stands more in some of these places by, dangling the sprint extra race in there. But I'm actually kind of surprised that next year they're only going with 6 sprint races, which I think is great, but I'm surprised nonetheless.
Well, and that just kind of leads into our next talking point, because there are discussions, because it has not been codified yet, to raise that number from 6 to around 10 is the number that is being bandied about from FOM to the teams and to the venues. So possibly 10 sprints from 2027 onwards. Talks between the commercial rights holder, the FIA, and the 11 teams will also include further ideas to refine the format. We talked about this when Stefano Domenicali kind of opened his mouth with the idea of at least floating the idea of a reverse grids for the sprints themselves. So what are your thoughts on a potential reverse grid for F1? Do we like it? Do we not? And then what's your thought on the 10 weekends? 10 out of 24. That's almost a third. What's your thought on both of those?
I guess I would be interested in seeing how a reverse grid sprint goes. Like, they do that in the junior series, and we've talked about that works in those series, and we're not really sure how it would work in Formula One. And how exactly you should do the points for that, but it could be interesting. At the very least, if there ends up being some dominant cars that are getting pole all the time, at least on the sprint weekend, they'll have to race up through the field, which could be exciting to watch. So I'll give it that. I don't think it really works as well in Formula One in my head, but I would be willing to give it a shot and see how that goes. As far as just 10 sprint weekends goes, I think that's too much. I think that 8, like we had this year, I think that for me that's a third of the season that we're running right now. I think for me that's kind of like the upper limit. I think 6 for next year is actually pretty much perfect in my opinion, and especially if you're doing it at the the marquee events or tracks where it makes sense, where it's easier to pass and the like. But I think once you're getting up to 10, it gets kind of weird because you're kind of almost watering down the sprint experience because you're having it so often. 10 weekends, you're approaching half the season has a sprint. And then at that point, it's like, I feel like once you start having that many, it's like, well, why not just do it for half or all? But I don't know. I'm still not completely sold on the sprint as it is. I'm still kind of with the feeling that, you could completely get rid of the sprint format and I probably wouldn't miss it too much. It's, most of the sprints are not that exciting. There's been a few bangers here and there, but most of the time they're not exciting. They're not worth that many points.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked, I think, at length about the fact that the fact of how they distribute the points makes it almost prohibitive for drivers, for teams to push the envelope, which is the whole point of the sprint. Because if you're only talking about 1 point and you're a driver who's 50 points behind your rival or your next highest competitor in the drivers or the constructors is more than like 10 points away, you have almost no motivation if you're not in the top 8 to really do anything. You might as well ride around and get your points. Now, if you're gonna do reverse grids, you're gonna have to change some of your format because it makes no sense to do sprint qualifying on Friday to set the grid for the sprint and then invert the grid. You're going to see teams, this is Formula One, you all know what's going to happen. You're going to have SQ3 will become a mockery, and it won't even be funny. The 107% rule will probably have to get violated, and teams, P1 and P2 and the constructors are probably going to have to ask permission to start the sprint. Because if you revert the grids, they're going to want to be in the front rows. It's just the bottom line. And the teams will figure out a way to do that. So you have to guard some way against that. I don't know. Now, if you're going to say, okay, we'll just make one qualifying session, I'm fine with that too. But now you have that hole in the schedule. What do you do with that? I don't know what you do with it. Because then you have an extra session, or do you eliminate a session? Which to me doesn't make any sense because the whole point of this is to make more meaningful, more interesting sessions. So the reverse grid to me feels like it's going to have one of those loops that comes in on itself at some point, and there has to be a reckoning. So I don't know how you do it. Like in F2, I get what they do. They have one qualifying session and then 2 legit races for points, but they don't have that extra Saturday 2 sessions that you see. You see the cars once on Saturday and once on Sunday, and that's it. I don't know that F1 wants to necessarily do that. They might. We'll see. But I'm with you on the dilution of the thing overall. If you start doing it every weekend, and yeah, I understand that, from a attendance standpoint, it does make a difference. I get it. I get why track promoters want it because, hey, it's an easy way to fill my stands when this is a racetrack that only gets used once, maybe twice a year. And this is I got to get my biggest bang for the buck because I have to pay a lot to FOM to have the cars come. So let's max out on the deal. I understand economics and how all that works. It's just kind of annoying from a fan perspective because then I think it dilutes the whole thing unless you made it its own independent championship, at which point then your format gets fixed. Then you can do reverse grids, and then I have no problem with it. Then you can open it up and you can say, okay, this is a chance for a team that normally wouldn't have any access to prize money because they're starting on the front row of these things to maybe hold everything off, and maybe it's wet, and who knows, maybe like Aston Martin can score a victory, or I'm not trying to pick on Aston Martin, but that's a team that I think could do it in the current pecking order or something like that. You wouldn't expect to see that coming. So that would be an occasion for something like that. So that's kind of my thought on it. Interesting to see what they're going to come up with, see what comes out of it. Obviously, we will continue to follow it. If big news about it breaks, we will bring it to you when we can. All right, moving on. Speaking of changes to formats, F1 and the FIA have resolved something we talked about back in May when we all kind of realized when the calendar came out that, hey, the Canadian GP and the Indy 500 looked like they were going to have a clash where the last 100 laps of the Indy 500, which are the money 100 laps if you're going to watch the Indy 500, we're going to go right up against the start of the Canadian GP, which was normally slated to start at 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. our time. F1 has talked with IndyCar, and what they're going to do is they have pushed the start of the Canadian GP back. The good news is they're going to have plenty of daylight, but it is a rather late start to a Grand Prix, even for Canada. It's going to start 4 p.m. local. So that's pretty late in the day. A 3 p.m. local start for us here, not bad. I mean, you're going to have your nice, if Indy goes according to plan. Now, here's I got the spanner, I've got the problem. It's May, it's Indy. It rains a lot in the Midwest in May. So if Indy is dry, this plan will work and it'll be fine and no one will care. If Indy gets delayed by even a half an hour, it's going to mess this all up. And we're going to be right back where we are. But at least they tried something. I applaud the effort. At least they're talking to each other. Cody, what's your thought on all of this?
I'm still pretty bitter about my greatest day in racing being ruined by this no longer being on the same day as the Monaco Grand Prix. But if it's got to be this way, I suppose, they're making an effort to not clash with the Indy 500, and that's good enough for me. You can only push it back so far without getting the Indy 500 to start, earlier or something. So, I guess I'm happy that they're trying to not interfere. As far as the weather thing goes, like if it happens, it happens. At that point, it's like, you're going to have to pick. But at least they're making enough of an effort that they're trying to keep you from having to pick unless, something nutty interferes.
Well, if IndyCar goes to form and they have those late red flags that they are kind of known for, that could also potentially have something to do with it too. But we will see how this experiment works. I mean, it's still going to be a pretty good darn day of motorsport. You're still going to have 3 races from the 3 big series. You're just going to have them. You're just not going to have Monaco to start it. You'll have IndyCar to start it. You'll still have F1 that'll kick off in the middle of your day, and you'll still have the Coca-Cola 600. I think that still happens later that night if you're into NASCAR. So you still got a pretty good day.
I got to wonder, will Canada be done by the time NASCAR starts?
Oh, NASCAR will be well into it because they got to start that thing at that thing usually starts at 4:30 or something, 5 o'clock local time.
It does take a little while to go 600 miles.
Yeah, especially the way that they throw caution flags for, hey, look, a dust mite fell on the track. Throw the yellow. But I digress. Different show, different podcast, different rant for another time. But anyway, all right, back to F1. Cadillac F1 is a team that has been slowly but surely getting their stuff and their acts together. They were seen at the Italian Grand Prix where they actually did a simulated weekend from the factory. And I thought that was actually pretty cool, where they had garage space that they were setting up, and they basically simulated what they would want to do in terms of getting through a regular Grand Prix weekend. What communication would happen back at base? Where would it go? What would it do? That type of thing. So one of the things that just also came out earlier this week was they have now also signed their first big title sponsor. Whiskey drinkers, if you're out there, you may like this one. I don't know that it's going to be Jim Beam Cadillac F1 just yet, but they are the first brand that's going to appear on the car. Jim Beam Whiskey is partnered with Cadillac F1. Cody, what is your reaction to this?
Definitely screams America. Yeah, your American whiskey on your Cadillac American team. It gets fun from that side of things. You know, they seem to be really leaning into the America side of this team, even though they're going to have Italian engines and non-American drivers driving the car, but they're getting as close as they can for the moment.
Not yet. Colton's coming.
Yeah, no, he's got to survive F2 first. So
true.
We'll see how that goes, but they are getting there. It is cool at this point to see more and more of the pieces coming together for this team as they're getting closer to their debut, which I think will be very exciting whether it goes well or not. But yeah, I think it's a good sponsor. It does always kind of weird me out a little bit when you have even in NASCAR and stuff like that. It does always kind of weird me out a little bit when you've got alcohol sponsoring cars.
Two things that shouldn't necessarily go together: alcohol plus autos, and yet they're all over the place. Yeah, I can understand that. To me, I always just have to have cognitive dissonance and just remember that these are rolling billboards, and they can kind of say
it's just advertising.
That's pretty much all it is. It is no worse than looking at the thing on the flatbeds that drive around downtown here, and if you look at them, somebody's paying for that thing to happen. So okay, fine, that's a job. Good. I guess that's good for the world. So I don't necessarily know that I'm a big fan of Jim Beam whiskey. I've only had it a few times. It's fine. I put it in Coca-Cola. I think I'm good to go. But other than that, I'm probably not, I'm not probably the target audience for that. But I'm sure there are people out there that are. So
better than Jack.
Fair enough.
In my humble opinion.
Fair enough. That's also a topic for another show and another place. Whiskey debate here on the Outlap F1 podcast. But anyway, it's good to see them getting some title attraction. So that's good. It means that the brand is definitely viable. People think it's viable, gives them credibility, which to me, that is the whole theme of 2026. Make that team credible across the board, and then they will be accepted. All right. That's pretty much it, basically, for the news that kind of happened over the course of the last week and a half or so. So we're going to take a quick break. We'll re-rack. We'll come on back. We'll hop into our Baku GP track facts, or the Azerbaijan circuit. We'll tell you about all of those. We'll preview the weather a little bit. Interesting weather for Sunday. Not sure if we're going to need those intermediate tires, but you never know. So anyway, we'll come on back, and then we'll tell you what we think is going to happen over the course of the weekend, and then we'll tell you where and when to watch your F1 if you are looking for it by the dawn's early light, if you are looking for it live. But anyway, come on back, and we will get into all that.
You are listening to the Outlap F1 podcast, and we'll be right back after this quick pit stop. Grab your flu powder, broomstick, or apparate to your favorite audio streaming service to join the discussion on Hogwarts, a podcast, where Dan and his friends have in-depth chapter-by-chapter breakdowns of each Harry Potter novel. Join the group as they dive into the magical world and discuss plot points, analyze character development, and occasionally go off the rails. Whether you're a muggle who's new to the series or a pure-blood wizard who won't need a remember-all, Hogwarts, a podcast, brings everyone to the Great Hall for a magical discussion. Hogwarts, a podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts.
All right, welcome back on in to the track that I always think I hope you like sunsets, because you're going to see that type of thing happen most of this weekend. It's the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. You have found our Azerbaijan Grand Prix show for the year 2025. It's the Outlap F1 podcast. If you didn't already know that, you've got Andy and I'm along with Cody tonight, and we're about to drop our green flag on our track facts of the Baku City Circuit, brought to us by the good folks at Pirelli Motorsport. Cody, tell us about that Baku City Circuit.
All right. This weekend, Formula One heads to Azerbaijan for the Azerbaijan Grand Prix around the Baku City Circuit, located in the beautiful city of Baku, Azerbaijan. Number of laps for the Grand Prix is 51, and the length of the circuit is 6.003 kilometers, 3.73 miles, and it consists of 20 turns, about half of which are 90 degrees. The tire selection from Pirelli this year is going to be quite soft. They're going with the C4 hard, C5 for the medium, and C6 for the soft. So about as soft as you can go. And the track characteristics from Pirelli are a 5 out of 5 for traction, 4 out of 5 for braking, a 1 out of 5 for lateral load, 3 out of 5 for tire stress, 5 out of 5 for track evolution, 2 out of 5 for asphalt grip, a 1 out of 5 for asphalt abrasion, and a 2 out of 5 for downforce. The qualifying lap record around the circuit is going to go to Charles Leclerc, who set that in 2023 with a 1 minute 40.203 second time, while the race lap record also goes to Charles Leclerc, but set several years earlier in 2019, and he did that with a 1 minute 43.009 seconds. Now, we've had quite a few races in Baku at this point, but the most wins around here still goes to Sergio Perez with only 2 wins, which is impressive, in my opinion. He's the only driver so far that has gotten 2 wins around Azerbaijan. Everyone else who's gotten a win here only has 1 apiece, and that's going to be Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton, Valtteri Bottas, Daniel Ricciardo, Nico Rosberg, and Oscar Piastri most recently. Most wins here, though, is going to go to Red Bull for the constructors at 4 wins, and then 3 for Mercedes and 1 for McLaren. What's the circuit like, Andy?
It is a mixture of wide open and also with the tight and the twisty. I love when I get to read this. The long main straight along the Baku shoreline is a slip-streaming mecca with cars able to run 3 abreast into turn 1. The action can sometimes look a lot more like IndyCar than F1. Cue Mark Webber screen going into turn 1. However, from there, the track loops around into the city's narrow, winding Old Town section. I'm not going to try to pronounce that. Dramatically winding past Baku's medieval city walls. As in Monaco, the slightest mistakes are punished quickly and severely, while setup-wise, the teams are forced to choose between downforce for the twisty bits and less drag for the straight. As for the weather, for qualifying on Saturday, going to be variable cloudiness and windy, so that could cause more issues than what you're thinking of. High around 70, so going to be on the cool side. Welcome back, Mercedes, to the conversation. Winds out of the northwest at 20 to 30 miles an hour, so that is quite gusty. A 24% chance of rain. And for Sunday race day, showers in the morning, then cloudy in the afternoon. Doesn't look like the sun's going to break, so it will stay cool. High of 71 degrees. Winds again out of the northwest at 15 to 25, so still quite gusty. Chance of rain, 40% on the day. So if there's rain, when does it hit? When does it stop? Who knows? Might be a factor for the race.
Have we had a wet Azerbaijan Grand Prix yet?
I don't think so. It was always one where like it would get cloudy and you'd think it would get, and then it never did anything. So I think to this point, they've all been dry. I know they've been windy before because I remember seeing shots of the trees, and now that it's in the fall, the leaves are going to be falling, and that could also be a thing too because, you're going to see all sorts of debris on the track, and do we get virtual safety cars for said debris if it gets particularly if it's really windy? So could be something to watch out for sure. All right, so let's take a stab at what we think is going to happen in this weekend. Last year's pole sitter was Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari, narrowly holding off Oscar Piastri in that qualifying, as I remember right, last year. So Leclerc, a bit of a specialist here, but I don't know if we think he's going to do good here. Cody, what's your thought on the pole position?
It is a bit of a tall ask for Charles Leclerc to get a pole here, but it's anything's possible, and he has gone very, very well here before. I'm going full fanboy this time around. I'm still riding high off of Max Verstappen's win in Italy. So I'm going to go with that. They're going to take all the downforce off his car and let him do what he does, and he'll somehow come out with the pole just like he did in Great Britain.
All right. I don't think there's plenty of straights for Max to eat on, and I guarantee you he's going to eat on those straights. I fully agree with you there. I just think there's one too many bits of twisty bits here. The castle section is dramatically different. That's where that car has seemed to struggle. So Max is going to be a factor. Not a doubt in my head. If he's right and the car is right, Max will be a factor all weekend for sure. Don't know that he's going to have enough to do the pole. If I can't give it to Leclerc and being a specialist, I'll say the guy who kind of figured this track out pretty good last year, and that was Oscar Piastri, who got to it late but ended up figuring it out pretty good. I think he's going to want to, especially after all of the melodrama and the hullabaloo from the team order thing that happened, he's just going to want to go out and say, you know what, this is my championship. I'm done playing around. My time to go get it. I think this is pissed off Piastri going to be a thing. I think he takes the pole. All right, so our qualifying pole lap time last year set by Charles Leclerc was a 1:41.365. We were talking in our pre-show, have to remember we are going to go a step softer. If these tires don't degrade, Pirelli is screwed here. They're literally bringing the softest possible freaking compounds that they have in their arsenal. The C6 is back, and we shall see what it does. But I would expect the lap times to be a bit quicker going into that. But Cody, what you got here?
I did go, I think, a little bit faster than the typical half second that we've been going for faster because of that softer tire compound. So I'm going to go with a 1 minute 40.647 seconds. And I'm really, really hoping that we don't see a one stop from the C6 to the C5 or something like that.
Oh, good Lord. If the C5 can go 51 laps, good night. Just put well, no, you know what it's going to be? It's going to be good morning. You can go back to sleep now, if that's the case, when we get to when these times are. But I do think the C6 will at least make it interesting for qualifying because it does tend to give up. So who does that favor? I think it favors McLaren, who probably are better with the tire thing than anybody else. So I've got it, but I do have it faster. A 1:40.489 because that thing is going to grip up by the time qualifying comes around. All right. So our race predictions last year in that long-ass battle between Oscar Piastri and Charles Leclerc that actually flip-flopped from the qualifying order. Piastri ended up taking his second win. It really felt like more like his first win because everybody could go, you can enjoy this one, Oscar. And I think he definitely did. Charles Leclerc, snake bit around this track. He goes so good here, but yet it never comes good for him. Managed to take second place. And third place was George Russell being the benefactor of the Perez-Sainz collision late. That elevated George Russell onto the podium, so he took P3 last season. All right, Cody, what do you got for your race podium? What you got?
Continuing to go full fanboy here. I'm really hoping that if Max can start on the front row, he'll get to the front. And then we've seen from the race last year that it can be difficult to pass if you have the clean air. We saw Oscar Piastri hold off Charles Leclerc for many laps. So I'm hoping that some kind of magic like that will happen and that we'll see Max Verstappen take the win and we'll see the other two McLarens round out the podium. That'll be Oscar Piastri in second and Lando Norris in third.
All right, very good. I'm going to be consistent. I'm going to say, I think this is going to be Oscar Piastri coming out and saying, this is mine, and I'm going to go take it. And I think he's going to do that because he goes really well around here. So I like him to take the win. I've got Lando coming in second, and I've got Charles Leclerc being the specialist, getting that Ferrari, I think will be in contention. Max is going to be in contention. I think the fight between Leclerc and Max, I've got them, 1 and 1A for this podium. But I went with Charles Leclerc because I think he's probably a little more tuned to this specific circuit more than Max is.
I hope we get Max versus Leclerc because it's really fun to watch them duke it out.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm rooting for the entertainment factor because those two would have at it, and it would be fun to watch. All right, our fastest lap and our driver from 2024 was Lando Norris in a recovery drive as he was trying to come back through the field. He said it on a set of soft tires, I believe. It was a 1:45.255. Cody, what you got for fastest lap, and who do you have making it?
I figure it's probably going to be one of the two McLarens. So I tossed a coin and went with Lando Norris getting the fastest lap again and doing it with a 1:44.778 seconds.
All right, very good. I do think when it comes to fastest lap, it comes down to clean air and opportunity to do so. And that's why I'm going to give this one to Charles Leclerc, because I think he will find some pockets of clean air, particularly maybe right after, I hope it's a 2-stop. That would make it a lot more entertaining for sure. But we will see how that pans out. But I've got 1:45.057. I don't think it's going to be, because it's going to be cooler. We may have a little bit more deg. It might not be as full on, full grip as we think, but we'll see what happens with that. But I got a 1:45.057. All right. So for our bonus picks this weekend, we've got P6, P7, P8. I'll go first with this one. I've got Lewis Hamilton coming home in P6. I know he usually probably would like to do better, but I think that's kind of just where he is at the moment. Getting better, but that's probably where he's at. But we'll see. Kimi Antonelli, even though this is a track that tends to favor the more experienced drivers, I think it'll be the second of the two Mercedes. I think George Russell is going to be in the mix in there somewhere, but it may be one of those P5s, I was here and I raced and nobody touched me again things. But I have Kimi Antonelli coming home in P7. And I'm going to give this one to Williams because this is a track that just on paper you would think would suit the Williams car. Alex Albon to come home in P8 and give Williams some much needed points in their defense of P5 and the constructors there. All right. And for our prop bet this weekend.
Oh, you don't want to hear my bonus picks?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. What do you got for bonus picks?
I got. I'm
so excited about the prop bet. You'll understand why in a minute.
No, it's all good. I agree with you for Lewis Hamilton in sixth place. I wish he would finish up higher than that, but just because of the dominance of the McLarens and Max doing Max things and the Ferraris, and particularly Charles Leclerc seeming to do well here, I do think, he's got a good chance, but I think sixth is probably where he'll slot into. I also agree that Alex Albon will probably do well here. In fact, I think one position better than what you had. So I got Albon finishing in seventh. And kind of like you said, this track doesn't tend to favor rookie drivers, but Isaac Hadjar has been doing so well lately that I think maybe he's got a chance to really show well here. So I got Hadjar coming in eighth.
Excuse me there. I apologize. I had a bad sip of the water there. But anyway, so I like those. Those are definitely good for bonus picks. We shall see. I'm glad we have some differentiation among here, so we will definitely see how that stacks up over the weekend. And for our prop bet, since McLaren can clinch the constructors this weekend if they outscore Ferrari by a scant 9 points, and there's some other permutations too. I think they have to make sure make sure they outscore Mercedes by Mercedes can't outscore them by 33. And then there's some other permutation with Red Bull that if Red Bull do a magical 1-2, that could put a delay to it. But anyway, the main thing that I'm going to be watching is do they outscore Ferrari by 9? Because that's probably how this is going to go. So do McLaren clinch their second consecutive Constructors Championship this weekend with a lot of rounds still to go? Cody, what's your thought?
I think that they will. McLaren has been so consistent this year, finishing more often than not 1-2 drive, or at least both drivers on the podium. We both predicted some form of that to happen again this weekend, and if they get two drivers on the podium, I think that pretty much clinches it for them right there. Because I think the end all be all is if they get 33 points between the two drivers, and that seals it no matter what else happens. So
right.
I think they got a really good chance of sealing it this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, even though this is a track that last year had that freaky double yellow flag zone that Lando drove in and it kicked him to the back and he's out in Q1, it's going to take something like that to probably screw it up. And I can see that happening to one car, but probably not to two. So I do think in Lando Norris's words, yeah, baby, McLaren will clinch the Constructors' Championship this weekend. All right. So when and where can you watch the sessions? And as I said before, it is by the dawn's early light. And in some places, it's still going to be dark. So this is where you earn your F1 hardiness card if you are so inclined to do these live. FP1 kicks off 5:30 a.m. Eastern. That is 4:30 a.m. here. That will be shown on ESPNU. FP2 will kick off 8 a.m. Eastern, 7 o'clock for here. That's usually when FP1 is starting. Also on ESPNU. FP3, it's going to be probably me and Kevin Kelly DMing each other in the middle of the night yet again. 3:30 a.m. at Central Time, baby. Woohoo! It's my old FP1 slot. In the dark. Third shifters do it in the dark, man. 4:30 a.m. Eastern. That's on ESPN2 if you want to watch the final practice. Qualifying kicks off. It will be daylight for most of the country by then. 8 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Central. That's on ESPN2. And the main race, we've got a friend's party to go to Saturday night. So depending on how late I was joking. I'm like, if he keeps us out kind of late, I may just stay up and finish this thing off because 6 a.m. Central, 7 a.m. Eastern time, again, by the dawn's early light, but that will be on big ESPN. So yeah, this is one of those, you earn your F1 stripes a bit this weekend for sure. Still not, the worst one was still Russia. Russia was always the worst one because I think that race started at 5 a.m. Sure.
Yeah, Russia was brutal. That was one of the ones that always just like catch you later on in the morning.
I remember there was one year I did stay up. We had an epic night and didn't get back to like 3 something in the morning, and Russia started and I didn't even like do my whole normal setup and everything, and I watched it and I got to the pit stop, and then I don't remember what happened after the pit stop. And I had to catch up with it later because I literally fell asleep trying to watch that thing because I was just so exhausted. But we'll see kind of how that goes. Stay tuned to our social media channels, our X platform. I will do my best to try to do the live qualifying as it happens. Keep it tuned if any other news breaks. If we get a George Russell sighting, I'm still on the lookout for that. When does that finally get announced? But anyway, so yeah, we will keep on it over the course of the weekend, and we hope you enjoy this weekend as well with us. So, Cody, any final thoughts as we head into the weekend?
You enjoy your live free practice, and I will catch you for qualifying.
I'm not going to text you and go, "Hey, dude, you up?" or something like that. I wouldn't do that. I would never do something like that. Oh, perish the thought. No, I totally get it. I mean, I know I'm the F1 crazy. You're a pretty dedicated fan, dude, and I give you a lot of props. But yeah, it's gonna be a tough practice for me to watch. And trust me, I'm not gonna be doing any tweeting or anything about it during that session. So unless like both McLarens wreck each other in the middle of free practice, you're not going to see much coming on our social media channels during that session. But qualifying, I will be up and we'll be doing it, and I will caffeinate appropriately as I can. But anyway, enjoy this weekend. F1 is back on. Enjoy it while it's here. So for Cody, it's been Andy. Take care of yourselves out there, ladies and gentlemen. And as always, may all your laps be fast.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Outlap F1 podcast. If you like what you heard, click that subscribe button and be sure to leave us a 5-star review. If you want to connect with us outside of the show, check out our website at www.outlapf1.com. Find us on Twitter and Instagram at OutlapF1 Podcast, or email us at chatnow@outlapf1.com. As always, thank you so much for your support, and we'll see you on the next one.